JJ the CPA here. Hope you're doing well. Okay, these Form 1099s, business owners, what is it? This video is meant for you. I want you to note right now below, there's a link to two different videos related to this. That one is a medium length and one is longer that really goes into detail. I really want to just give you the 1, 2, 3 quick synopsis overall. The thing I'm just going to say up front is there's exceptions to everything related to the IRS, especially related to this. So I'm trying to give you the general rules that would cover probably 95% of small business owners that feel as though they probably have 1 or 2, 3 to send out. So with that being said, if you're not a business owner, you don't send out a Form 1099. This would just be somebody that has a business, and you're going to know if you have a business, right? Well, then who's in the running for it? Well, did you pay someone over $600, meaning an individual? Yes, going to need to send them a Form 1099 NEC. If you paid an attorney for legal services, you got to send them a Form 1099 NEC if it's over $600. And if you paid a business for services, an individual or a business for services over $600, well, then you got to send them a Form 1099 NEC. Now, let me tell you a big exception here is that if you paid any of these things by credit card, then you are not going to send them a Form 1099 because the company in which you processed that payment through, they will send the Form 1099-K. So I pay for legal services and I send them a check for $1,000. And then the next time I get a bill, I send them a credit card payment for $800. Then on the Form 1099, it's going to be $1,000 because that was by check. It wouldn't include the $800 because that was paid by credit card. That'd be the same whether it's for an individual or if it's for someone providing services. That's kind of across the line there. Now, when you say, well, I paid businesses, now do I have to do it to all of them? Well, this is where the conundrum comes in. So Marriott, no. Office Depot, no. Delta Airlines, no. These bigger companies, no. Why? Because they're a C corporation. Well, how do I know that? Because they're huge companies, right? What you're talking about here is that you paid someone local. I'm just kind of giving you some ideas. The other areas is, and I get it, right? You might pay someone online. So maybe you're paying other small businesses. That's usually who's kind of in the running for this. And that's who the IRS is kind of like, well, I don't know if that small business is reporting their income or not. So we want other businesses that are paying that business to send that business a Form 1099. So then the IRS would have a better feel of income that small business is earning. Now, when we are looking at this Form 1099 NEC, it is due January 31st, not only to the recipient, but to the IRS. So that's whether you're mailing these forms to the IRS or you are e-filing it. The one thing I want you to note as well is that when you send the IRS the Form 1099s, they have to be on a special printed red outlined piece of paper that you have to buy. In the longer videos, I walk through it, show you some examples, what we use, where we go to get that. The other thing is that when you are mailing in that form, the Form 1099s, the red copies to the IRS, you have to include a Form 1096, also the red copy. The 1096 is the overall transmittal summary that is then sent to the IRS with the 1099s. Now, if you happen to, I'm going to go off to say if you're doing Form 1099s miscellaneous as well, which I talk about in the longer videos, then you're going to send a separate 1096 with the 1099 miscellaneous. 1099 miscellaneous, as a note, does have to get sent to the recipient also by January 31st. But if you are paper filing the 1099s, those red copies, miscellaneous, with the IRS, you do send it with the 1096. That has to be mailed on or before the end of February. And if you're e-filing, now this is just for 1099 miscellaneous, if you're e-filing the forms with the IRS, then you would have till the end of March. I'm going to give you links to all these forms so that you can go and check any of this information on your own. If you know of an exception, great. Follow whatever you know, follow what it is that you read, just giving you general synopsis here. Now, if you have more than 250, if you have 250 or more recipients, then you have to e-file with the IRS this information. So if you have less than 250 recipients, meaning I'm only sending out this information to 3 companies or individuals, well, then you can e-file or paper copy. But let's be clear, on 1099 NEC, I'm repeating, you got to get it to the recipient by the end of January, as well as then get it to the IRS by the end of January as well. Now, where we look at this information. So for small businesses, like, gosh, where do I begin? Well, hopefully you've been tracking your expenses in some kind of accounting software, probably QuickBooks. So if you are, QuickBooks has vendor report. So all the vendors that you've entered in, you can run a report. It'll run a summary of how much you paid each vendor. So check it out, vendor report. The other thing is we go through the general ledger. What's a general ledger? It's just the detail of your expenses. How do you find that? Well, in QuickBooks, you pull up a P&L for the year, go down to total expenses, double click on it. It should bring you up the detail, or go to accountant reports, print general ledger for the year, and it'll give you the details that goes into all your expenses. You should be reviewing those reports anyways. But also eyeball that. Your vendor report's not a catch-all be-all. If you use software that has the 1099 capabilities built into it, like QuickBooks, great, use that. And hopefully throughout the year, you've been check marking the vendors that would be somebody you'd have to send a 1099 to, and you've been collecting that information, meaning their EIN, their address, to be able to produce it out of that. And what you want to note here is if you don't get it sent in on time, there's going to be some penalties. How much? Well, I'll let you read it. It's all based on time and how many forms. When in doubt, we just send a 1099, okay? When in doubt. Now, I don't mean when in doubt, Delta Airlines, like, we're not going to get silly over this. But if somebody says, yeah, here's my EIN, they're an LLC, but I don't know how they're taxed, well, then we're going to send them 1099 NEC. Now, if you are paying an individual, then you need to really look at, does that need to be somebody that's made an employee going forward? Because this is a big part of where I think the IRS is paying attention to, is who's getting these 1099s, NECs that's an individual, and why, and should they be an employee? So there's a Form W-9. I'm going to give you a link to that. That's really what you should be getting from those individuals and those businesses that you're paying over $600 in a year, because on the Form W-9, that is what tells you their ID number, as well as then how they're taxed, to then help you determine, do you send them a Form 1099 or not? All right, there's a summary for you. These other two videos, you may check them out, because I go through these in more detail and I bring these things up on the screen. And check out my other videos as well. Check out my seminars. All right. Hey, if you're not a subscriber and you made it to here, I'd sure love it if you would. Going to have a lot of good information out. Going to be doing a lot of live shows during tax season, doing a lot of Q&A. All right. Hey, I'd love it if you'd subscribe. And then don't you ever forget, you've never met a CPA quite like me. You have a great one.